Madeleine Albright, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, thank you.
Ms. Albright, a theme of this book is that fascism creeps up on you. Not everyone sees it coming. What are the warning signs?
I think what we're looking for is when societies are divided, maybe because of economic reasons or cultural reasons, but along comes a demagogic leader who takes advantage of that situation and exacerbates it by aligning himself with one group, kind of a tribal group of some kind, against the minority, and makes clear that that group that he's aligned with is always right and the others are wrong and have no rights, and then proceeds, in fact, to make things much worse and takes over power by any means whatsoever. And so the best quote in the book, frankly, comes from Mussolini, who says, if you pluck the chicken one feather at a time, nobody notices. And so what I'm warning about are those steps that seem kind of benign and then turn out to be malignant.
I was astonished to read in your book that Donald Trump's line, drain the swamp, by which he means get the vested interests out of Washington, is taken directly from Mussolini, who said drainare la palude, which means drain the swamp. Does Donald Trump have the instincts of an authoritarian?
Well, I was fascinated to see that Mussolini said the same thing in Italian. It kind of sounds better, frankly. But I think that one of the things about Trump is I'm often asked whether I think he's a fascist. He's not a fascist, I don't think. But from an American perspective, he is the least democratic president we've had in modern history. And what he has done is, in fact, identify himself with a tribal group. He really has no use for the others and thinks that they don't have any rights. He has labeled the press the enemy of the people. He has no regard for our judiciary. And he really is somebody that sees himself as the savior, always right, the stable genius, as he calls himself.
You identify that undermining moral boundaries, inuring people to extreme acts of cruelty, is a crucial step towards authoritarianism. Do you really see in the Muslim ban, in the separation of children from their parents at the Mexico border, evidence that the US is approaching that threshold?
It is certainly a step, and I do think that as people are kind of being picked on and punished, I don't see purges, but I do see kind of a sense generally, let's get rid of the people that we disagree with and isolate them, and that they shouldn't have any rights. I mean, I do think that some of the statements that have been made against the various parts of the government, the judicial system or the FBI, is kind of saying this group of people is hurting you. So I am worried about it, which is why on my to-do list is not to be quiet. I have bound and determined to keep talking about this and pointing out that we can't go any further in this direction, that it really is dangerous.
How do you view President Trump's recent European trip, his denigration of NATO leaders, his humiliation of the UK Prime Minister with that Sun article, and then the summit with Vladimir Putin?
I think what he wants to do is to not just drain the swamp, but destroy the system, which he feels is not working. And he's always looking for a scapegoat, which is another one of the signs of this kind of a leader, a demagogue.
To what extent, in your opinion, is the problem with Mr. Trump an ignorance of history?
I think that there is no knowledge of history. I believe that. And if there were, I don't think that he would be doing the kinds of things he's doing. I don't think he's a student of history. He's a student of hotels.
There seems to be a reluctance among US allies to criticise Donald Trump for fear that they would pay a price for doing so. Would they?
People need to explain that what is happening with America is damaging the international system that needs fixing. I think I've been saying that people and institutions at age 70 actually do need a little bit of refurbishing. And I think those leaders that actually do have a relationship with President Trump, the most important thing about friends is that they actually tell you the truth. I don't know. I know that Prime Minister Turnbull has had some discussions with President Trump, and my sense is that they respect each other.
You quote a range of ordinary people in the book who lived under fascism in Europe during the Second World War. And one is Różina Spiglova, who wrote in her journal that care for others, a belief that we are all created equal, is the single most effective antidote to the moral numbness that allows fascism to thrive. Who was Różina Spiglova and what happened to her?
She was my grandmother, and all I know is that I have pictures with her when I was 2, but I did not know her as an adult. And she stayed in Czechoslovakia after the war, during the war, and my parents took me and we went and lived in England, and my father worked for the Czechoslovak government in exile. And that comes out of a diary that I found, and she ultimately ended up dead in a concentration camp. And I found out that 26 members of my family died in concentration camps. So I have experienced fascism, and I think I felt that warning about where this leads in terms of scapegoatism and plucking one feather at a time is the most dangerous thing in the world. And I am concerned about the number of feathers that are being plucked at this time.
Madeleine Albright, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you so much.